Okay, guys, so we're on chapter 3 of this story now, and from what it looks like, we're gonna be seeing Tom play the game. Fucking finally! God, this I don't even know how to describe the pacing, but okay. So chapter 3. Tom picked up the game disc and looked at it for several minutes as he sat back down in front of his laptop. Since Kyle's laptop was still at 11% power, there was no way Tom could see the game downloaded on it. So he'll have to rely. So he had only to rely. He so he had to only rely his he had only his own to rely on. He opened the CD drive and placed the disc in, closing the drive and waited for the installing notification to show up. After a few minutes, the notification appeared on the screen. Do you want to install Sonic.exe? Sonic.exe? Tom read the name again and see if it was correct. He felt a small tingle of disbelief creeping up within himself. Really? This really wonderful, never before seen video game Kyle had found and spent weeks playing before he died was a Sonic the Hedgehog game? Tom felt his anger rising, but he suppressed it. He couldn't bring himself to curse his friend for such stupidity, and who knows? Maybe Tom was being too quick to judge this game. Willing to give the benefit of the doubt in honor of his friend, Tom clicked yes, and the standard installation wizard popped up for Sonic.exe. And Tom went through the process. He directed the game files to program files and checked to add the thumbnail on his desktop. And of course agreed to the terms of agreement. The window changed into the progress bar. He probably didn't even read the terms of agreement and just downloaded it anyway. And just put I agree with the terms of agreement anyway. But back to the story. After several minutes, it was at 1%, realizing it was going to be a while until the game had fully installed. Tom decided to order some takeout and watch a movie while the game was installing. He went onto Domino's website and he made his order a medium-sized pie with green peppers and bacon and a 2-liter of Coke, and then went to his couch and turned on his TV to search for a movie on Netflix. I was gonna say this real quick. I feel like this is where 2017 X's hashtag came from. Green peppers on pizza. Yeah, green peppers on pizza. All right, but anyway, okay. I know his new hashtag is Sonic Roleplay Club, but that's for the new version. I'm talking about like the old version, but anyway. After the delivery man came and got Tom his pizza, he selected the Dark Knight and just enjoyed himself as he waited for the game to install. As soon as the movie reached the scene where the Joker started to manipulate Two-Face, Tom's computer had suddenly went black. It had shut down. Tom heard of the faint clicking noise. It indicated it shut down. He turned his head to see a black screen. Pausing the movie, he got it to investigate. It didn't seem overheated or anything. He just assumed it was one of those games that required a restart before installation was complete. He waited for the computer to start back up, and when it didn't, Tom grew restless. Surely his computer didn't experience an error or a virus installing the game, did it? After immediately pressing the power button, he let out a sigh of relief when it turned back on. After a couple minutes of no response, he waited for the computer to start back up, signed back in, and checked his desktop. And there he saw it. Sitting at the very center of his desktop was an icon that appeared to be a black X. There wasn't a name anywhere under it. He right-clicked to check on his properties. He was rather surprised to see that there was literally nothing there. No type of file, no description, not anything besides describing the location, size, or even the dates when it was created. Tom stared at the icon. The way it looked on his desktop looks more like a tiny black cracked fissure than in the form of an X. A bit of an odd choicing for an icon, Tom muttered to himself. A bit of an odd choice for an icon, Tom muttered to himself. Satisfied with that the game had installed itself, Tom closed the laptop and sat back down on the couch to finishing watching his movie before playing it. Once Dark Knight had finished, Tom turned Netflix off and got up and grabbed his laptop and got himself back on the couch. "All right, Kyle," Tom said, moving his mouse toward the X icon. and double clicking on it. Let's see what was so great about this game of yours. Tom waited until his screen went black. This time he knew the game was starting up. After a while, he heard something as he continued looking at the screen. A quiet but noticeable music box playing. Slowly, he recognized that song. It was the theme of the it was the theme songs of the very first Sonic the Hedgehog game, except only it played the first few notes twice before ending. The black screen changed as soon as the song ended. Tom saw on the screen a background with sunny blue sky and with white clouds floating by slowly to the left. On the center in front of the clouds was the title Sonic. That familiar text in most Sonic games, with the familiar title text in most Sonic games, the captions press enter flashing below it. Tom pressed entered, and as instructed, the title screen faded into the sky background with a computerized blip sound. And then a voice spoke up. Tom had jumped, startled from how sudden the voice came from the computer. It was strange. It was a strange voice, sounded like a young man's, at least what seemed like younger than him. Except it sounded off. It wasn't just the fact that it spoke in a friendly, almost childlike manner, but Tom could tell by just listening to the voice there was something not right about it. It sounded fake. So for X's like figure form voice, I might just gonna have to use my Sonic impression. So yeah, here we go. Hiya! Do you want to play a game with me? The screen faded to black, and two options appeared: yes and no. His curiosity still maintained. Tom clicked yes, and the voice spoke again. Awesome! I already got the perfect game we can play. One of my favorites. Tom began to detect the slight familiarity to the tone of the voice. It was like whoever was speaking was trying to sound like Sonic the Hedgehog. It was a pretty good attempt, but Tom couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong with the way it sounded. The playfulness of the voice didn't really help it neither. The screen changed into what appeared to be a dimly lit room with large old TV screens lined up on the floor. A yellow arrow blinked toward the right next to the third TV, showing more TV screens. Captions were above the screens reading choose a player, or captions were above the screen reading choose a player. Tom looked at the TVs. Their screens were showing images of numerous Sonic characters. First was Tails the Fox. You should have just said Miles Tails Prower. Then Knuckles the Echidna. Then Dr. Eggman. Then Silver the Hedgehog. Then Amy Rose. Then Shadow. Then Rouge the Bat, followed by many other Sonic characters, a few which Tom didn't recognize. Probably Mighty and Ray are in this shit too, I bet. Tom was rather surprised by the selection of characters for him to choose from. Though he had already come to the conclusion that this wasn't a game Sega had created, looking through the selection using the arrow keys he stopped to Silver, thinking it over. Tom had remembered how he always liked playing as Silver in Sonic 06. Oh, this motherfucker's a fan of Sonic 06? Nah, I cannot let that slide. What? Play Project 06, bro. But anyway, he always loved playing as Silver in Sonic 06, as well as playing as him in Sonic Rivals and the Mario and Sonic games. Filled with nostalgia, he pressed enter on Silver's TV. The voice spoke again. Silver, huh? Is that your favorite? The yes and no options appeared again. Tom was rather surprised about how the game guessed that Silver was his favorite character, but then he rationalized it could have just been part of the overall gaming mechanic if this game was indeed made by a fan of the Sonic franchise. Then perhaps the creator wanted to center the game or cater the games to the player. Perhaps the creator wanted to cater the player's needs by letting them play as their favorite character. With that resolve, Tom selected yes. The voice laughed as the screen faded to black. The laugh made Tom tense up. It was unsettling and unfitting sort of laugh. The kind of laugh like a whooping cloud like a whooping cloud sort of laugh. I'm gonna try to do it. Glad I guessed right. Okay, the first game we're gonna play is hide and seek. All you gotta do is remain hidden and don't let me catch you. I'm sorry, guys. I know this is my Sonic impression. Anyway, Tom had noticed a growl under the excitement of the voice. The way it sounded, the way it sounded, the way it said, the way it said, "Don't let me catch you," sounded almost too excited, almost predatorial. The screen had faded, and Tom was playing as Tails. Tom looked at the screen in confusion. Didn't he just pick Silver to play as? Why was he playing as Tails instead? Already, the game was giving off very weird vibes for Tom, but his curiosity remained steady. The game's graphics were 3D and looked very good. Tom couldn't tell if the graphic quality was similar to that of Sonic Unleashed or Sonic Generations. A small message popped up and saying it's probably better if you play with with a controller. Tom promptly grabbed his wired Xbox 360 controller and plugged it into his laptop. After fiddling with the options to make the controller work, he started moving Tails around and looked at the environment he was in. Tails was in a city, one completely devoid of life, and appeared to be somewhat in ruins, giving off a kind of dystopian kind of feel to the overall place. The sky was a perpetual cloudy dawn, and Tom was amazed at the amount of detail that this empty ghost town he had Tails run around in, exploring districts and entering buildings. The way all looked reminded him of the third segment of Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure, except made far more bigger and more open. And of course, decrepit, silent with no music and lacking any characters, NPC, or enemy, Tom's amazement slowly changed to uncertainty, and then worry. The more he explored the city, he couldn't find a living soul anywhere within this quiet, bleak world. He was suddenly alone. Tom's concern about finding any inhabitants in the ruined city were soon replaced with an increasingly overwhelming feeling, an ominous feeling that he didn't think he'd feel over playing a video game. Tom couldn't put his finger on it, but he started to get the feeling that he wasn't alone. He wasn't alone at all. Or to get the feeling that he wasn't alone at all. There was something out there. That there was something out there in the same area as Tom. It wasn't like he was being watched, but more like something was out there in the room, but more like something was more like someone's excuse me. But more like something was out there in the ruined city looking for him. I'm sorry, guys. Tom felt fear welling up inside of himself that he had never felt before. He wasn't concerned for his avatar Tails. He couldn't explain it. He felt like he was personally in some kind of danger. He had Tails run down the streets because he didn't want to enter any buildings, fearing he'd be rendered helpless to whatever he was terrified of. Tom also started to notice it didn't seem like there was any way out of this huge empty city either. If anything, it seemed like he was looping back to the same districts, the same buildings. The further he tried to go, the same buildings, the further he tried to go away from them. By the time Tails had entered this district, the district that had a plaza in it, the fountain being dry, and one building nearby being bent onto the verge of collapse, Tom had seen something nearby walking around the plaza rather casually. Was Sonic. Tom had seen something nearby walking around the plaza rather casually was Sonic. Except the more Tom looked at him, the more he began to notice how different Sonic's character model was, or at least how different in comparison to Tails. Sonic's arms were completely blue and he lacked gloves and shoes. His hands and feet were blue as well. The color of his skin on his belly and ears and face appeared to be an odd pale color. The more Tom looked at this Sonic, who kept walking ever so leisurely with his back turned toward Tails, unaware of Tom's character being in the same area as him, the more confused Tom was at his design. He just looked wrong. The blue creature stopped in his tracks before he could make another step. his pose frozen in a mid walk. His pose frozen in mid walk. That overwhelming fear in his own life came back. Within Tom, the more he stared at Sonic, the more he stared at Sonic just standing there with his back turned towards Tails in the frozen walking pose. Sonic then slowly turned to see Tails, and for the first time, Tom got a good look at the creature's face. Sure enough, Sonic's skin color was an odd pale, but it was the eyes that caught Tom's attention for the most part. Sonic's eyes were normally green and conjoined together like in every game he was in, but from what Tom had seen, this Sonic's eyes were split apart, like Tails' eyes, with irises being pitch black like classic Sonic. This strange looking Sonic looked at Tails for a moment, and then, to Tom's shock, slowly moved his eyes towards Tom. He couldn't believe it. This Sonic was staring directly at him. The blue creature smiled a cartoonishly wide kind of grin, and then spoke in the same voice he heard earlier on. "Wow, you're not very good at this game, are you?" Tom couldn't believe it, what he was seeing or hearing. His breathing increasing in speed as he stared at the screen. There was no way that this creature was talking to him, looking at him. The creature laughed that high, clownish laugh, then spoke again, his voice more childish, more mocking, as if he was a kid bullying Tom. "What's wrong? You acted like you never saw a hedgehog before." Sonic then took a step toward Tails. Tom then, to his horror, saw the black irises spreading over the creature's white eyes, the holes cracking and increasing in size until the eyes were completely black. He smiled, widened more and more, and Tom could see that the creature had fangs. Large, sharp fangs, more fangs than what could normally fit in one's mouth. This was not Sonic. Tom immediately made Tails run from the creature. As it continued to transform as he did so, he saw the look of terror on Tails' face. Tom did not stop to look at the creature as it transformed. He didn't want to see it. He had to get as far away from this monster. Tom had made Tails enter a hotel, desperately looking for a place to hide. But when he opened the door and ran inside, to Tom's surprise, he had ended up at someplace entirely different. He could see flames burning around Tails. This time he was in a large forested area. Man, this is familiar. As Tom moved the camera to observe the inferno all around him, he could see the trauma and despair on Tails' face, refusing to come more toward the flames. No matter how much Tom made him move, this disturbed Tom. He felt an odd sense of pity for the poor fox boy. Then a voice came again, that terrible fake teen voice. "This room? Pfft, funnily enough, this is his favorite place to be." Tom moved the camera to see where the voice was coming from. Then he noticed poking out of a bush what appeared to be Sonic's head, except pale, dark-furred, with an odd-looking face. The eyes were now just teeny tiny black pinprick dots, and the smile was just a wide black curved line, like someone had drawn it on there with a marker or crayon. Tom then looked at the head in confusion. It seemed rather surreal. The way the head looked was like it could have been the head of a Sonic doll. The head rose up, and Tom saw it ended in a thin, pitch black tendril of sorts, rising up from the ground like some kind of flower. The doll had bobbed and swayed its head rather lazily. Tom would have perceived it as harmless, if not for the overwhelming terror he had been experiencing thus far, as he could see Tails was on the verge of tears as he cowered behind this strange being. The doll had then spoken the creature's voice, except now the voice had changed. It was much more young, like a child's. Tom could see that even though it spoke, its mouth didn't move at all.
This adorable little fox boy just loves to play with the fire here, don't you?
I'm sorry, I know. Tom then saw Tails shake his head no desperately, as he could also see Tails was trying to form words for himself, but was too scared to speak. The doll then spoke to Tails, its voice sweetly but just as mocking.
What's wrong, buddy? Don't you like playing with me? Ugh.
Tails then fiercely shook his head in refusal, tears streaming down his face. He sat there looking at the doll head, and the doll head giggled with a clown-like guffaw under that child's giggle. It swayed its head more. It then responded with a coincidentally sing-song kind of voice, much more like a noticeably audible growl on the last word. It stared down at him.
Liar, liar,
Pits on fire. Oh, okay. Suddenly, as something erupted from the ground, it wrapped around Tails' neck. The fox yelped in pain as Tom realized that it was a barbed wire. Tails clawed desperately at his own neck to remove the wire. It tightly wrapped around his neck, starting to bleed as he choked and cried. While this was going on, the fire began to spread around him until he was engulfed in it. Tom could do nothing but watch as the poor fox child writhed and screamed in the flames. He watched his Tails' yellow fur begin to blacken and burn, his eyes becoming bloodshot, his neck bleeding more and more as he screamed in agony and terror. Tom then screamed as the doll head suddenly creeped up from the side of the screen, dangerously up close, obscuring what was happening to Tails. Looking directly at Tom, he could see the smile was becoming more and more real, up to show those huge fangs. The tiny dots were growing in size, forming cracks on the doll's face. The two red dots began to glow from within the blackness of the widening eyes. That horrifying clown laugh was present, screaming even through the doll's lips didn't move. Tom had enough. This was too much. He immediately slammed his finger onto the power button and shut his computer off. A ringing silence came with his screen, and his screen went to black. Tom then sat there, panting, drenched in sweat. He could hear the creature's laughter and Tails' screaming in his head before ebbing away. What the fuck, Kyle? Tom sputtered in disbelief. What kind of game did Kyle buy? This was clearly not a game approved by Sega. Sure, they threw in a creepy message in Sonic's CD to scare away hackers, but there was no way to develop a game. They would develop a game like this, let alone to release it to the public. Tom was convinced that the creature he saw in the game was not Sonic at all, just by its behavior. Also, because of how the model looked. It started to turn more monstrous than that doll head he saw minutes before Tails got incinerated. Everything about Sonic in the game was completely wrong. It had to have been made by someone other than Sega, because there was no possible way that thing actually talked to Tom. Could there? Tom ran his hands along his face with a sigh, feeling sleep overriding his stress over what had just transpired. Ugh. Some freaky fan game. It's gotta be, he said to himself, deciding to deal with it in the morning. Tom got up from his desk and went straight to bed, not even bothering to close his laptop or clean his mess. Tomorrow he would talk to his friends about the game or maybe continue playing it. Hoping to shake off the feeling of dread and uncertainty, Tom slowly drifted to sleep. And that, my friends, was chapter 3 of this horrible creepypasta. And I will say this is where Subterfuge originated from. And oh my god, I just can't stop. I don't know. This story is just like, I don't know. I really don't know about this story, but like, yeah, I couldn't read it at some parts because of JC's fucking writing, man. It's not that good. I have my own take on Sonic.exe coming up, by the way. I did finish the first story. I don't know if you read it, but maybe after I do this series, I'll read my take on Sonic.exe for you guys. So yeah, but that's gonna be all for this video today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.